Tuesday, March 18th, 2025, and of course, a lot is going on in the world, and we'll be talking about that here on World Edition. Later on today, we'll be having the Ukraine, Russia, China show as well, and of course, we'll be having newsworthy stories with Jacqueline Jimenez. But right now, in terms of the news, it looks like more than 400 Palestinians were killed in a surprise Israeli attack across Gaza. So Israel carried out a deadly strike in Gaza and warns of intensified attacks. So definitely that's the breaking the ceasefire with Hamas, according to officials and a report in the Washington Post. So we'll see how this all plays out as well. And an Antarctic base is under control after researchers accuse a colleague of assault. So scientists at the Antarctic base are rocked by an alleged assault. Fury at an isolated Antarctica base as a man is accused of attacking a colleague and making threats. So definitely it looks like a team of scientists is trapped at an isolated Antarctic base for 10 months. One of them just attacked and threatened the other. That's what the report is saying. And we're not stopping. Trump officials raised the stake in showdowns with judges. So the lawyers can slow a Trump dictatorship. They have to do something that is uncomfortable, according to an article in the Slate. So definitely that's something that's going on. And there are definitely judges going toe-to-toe against Trump's agenda. Trump again warns Iran it will face consequences of further attack from Yemen's Houthi rebels, and the Pentagon says operation targeting Yemen's Houthis is open-ended. So definitely Trump says Iran will suffer dire consequences for any more Houthi attacks. And German parliament is to vote on a historic spending surge. So Bundestag prepares to vote on historic borrowing package in key tests for Merz. So Germany is set to vote on a historic increase in their defense spending. So definitely we'll see how that plays out as well. And Peru declares an emergency and deploys the army as violence surges in the capital. So murders hit record in Peru as capital enters a state of emergency. So Peru has declared a state of emergency as a violent crime wave engulfs Lima. So definitely that's something going on in the world, as apparently that crime wave gripped that capital and a singer was shot dead over there as well. And Carney says that Canada is limited in matching further U.S. tariffs. So Canada's Carney sends a message to Trump as he chooses Europe for first foreign trip as prime minister. Most European, non-European country, Canada turns to allies as Trump threatens. So definitely Canada's Carney wants 51st state talk to stop before talks with the U.S. on economy and security ties. And Syria donor pledges $6.5 billion in aid and hoping to encourage its new leader down the path to peace. So Ismail Imamat pledges a it looks like 100 million pounds for Syria's development. So definitely it looks like that's something going on as well, and that's one of the donors. And the Pope remains in stable condition with a slight improvement. So that's something else we're seeing in the news as well. And in terms of the nightclub fire, protesters vent fury after that North Macedonia disaster. A popular singer dies running back into North Macedonia nightclub fire to rescue young fans. And at least 59 concert goers are dead and over 100 injured in that nightclub fire. A difficult and very sad day in that part of the world is what folks are saying. Let me get to some U.S. news, and then I'll bring in some of my fellow folks as well and see what they've got going on in their world. Family of missing Pitt students are asking authorities to have her declared dead. So parents of missing Loudoun County college student asked the Dominion police to declare her as dead and all along those lines. So definitely a key witness there is asking the court to end the de facto house arrest. So we're going to see how this all plays out as well. And the DOJ, Department of Justice, is seeking to boot judge questioning Trump's deportation. Lawyer warns of a constitutional crisis. And the judge issues a fresh deadline to the White House over the Venezuelan deportations now. So that's something else going on as well. And folks are asking about the El Salvador mega prison after Trump sent hundreds of immigrants there. And Trump says his administration is set to release JFK files with no redactions. So Trump promises again to release all Kennedy assassination files. And it looks like he's going to be releasing 80,000 packages of JFK files on this particular day on Tuesday. And catastrophic consequences. Folks are saying that in Alternet, and folks are asking why the Getz ethics investigation hasn't been released, and all along those lines. So House is reviving the ethics committee after Getz blow up. So definitely that's something that's going on in the news as well. And a doctor deported to Lebanon had photos sympathetic to Hezbollah on his phone, according to the U.S. And Brown University professor was deported despite the judge's order defying the U.S. court. So definitely that's something else we're going and hearing. The Economic Times said, bye-bye Russia. White House uses Trump's McDonald's stint to mock deported Brown University doctor. So definitely that's something going on in the news as well. And Trump says talks with Putin on Ukraine ceasefire have a very good chance of success. Putin wants all arms to Ukraine halted for the Trump truce. So Trump and Putin to hold a call to discuss a ceasefire in Ukraine. So we'll see how this all plays out as well. But I think that's supposed to be taking place today. And Texas charges a midwife in the first arrest under the state's abortion ban. So definitely 2 Houston area clinic employees were arrested for allegedly providing illegal abortions in that part of the world. And Chinese state media hails Trump's cuts to Voices of America. So Chinese nationalists praise Trump's cuts to Voice of America. And the CBS News says Trump's dismantling the Voice of America could lead to a dominance of anti-American propaganda. That's what their director, the Voice of America director, said, and everything like that. And CNN data chief hits Democrats with a horrible, horrible reality. New polls suggest Democratic voters are livid at party leaders, and definitely Harry Eaton on voter approval levels of Democrats in Congress. So it could be a hard time even for Democrats in a upcoming midterm election. But we'll see how this all plays out and all along those lines. And from France comes a call for Trump's America to return Lady Liberty. The White House says the U.S. won't return the Statue of Liberty to France, and the U.S. had rejected French politicians' call to return the Statue of Liberty. So that's something else that's in the news as well. And Chuck Schumer was right to avoid a government shutdown. I'm the best leader for the Senate, Chuck Schumer says amid internal party drama after the shutdown vote. And it looks like the Democrats are clashing over how to govern in the minority. And DOJ staff enters the U.S. Institute of Peace with D.C. police help. So looks like the DOJ staff marched into the U.S. Institute of Peace and evicted its officials. So that's something else that we're hearing in the news as well. And Trump touts himself as Kennedy Center Awards host, saying he's the king of ratings. So President Trump attended the board meeting at the Kennedy Center, and he envisions remaking the honors, suggesting that he could host. So we see some of Trump's entertainment things going on as well. And Trump claims Biden's parties for January 6th committee are void. Legal experts, however, disagree. And I also understand he's taken off the Secret Service police protection from Biden's adult children. And I think there's some other people that he had said he was taking it off as well. And I'd read somewhere that he was also adorning the White House in gold. So apparently there's a lot of gold going on in the White House as well. So there's a lot of things taking place in the area and all along those lines. So we've got a lot going on. Of course, Kimberly does want folks to join the conversation, and I'm waiting for other folks to join me as well. But we're still waiting for folks to join. So let me continue with the news and all along those lines. So all our reporting on the Wisconsin Milwaukee Journal is talking about their reporting on the Wisconsin Supreme Court race between Susan Crawford and Brad Shamil. So the Democrats' anti-Musk strategy got its first test in a Wisconsin election. So start of early voting in Wisconsin Supreme Court race will test enthusiasm on both sides. So we'll see how that all plays out as well. And the Trump administration moves to reinstate thousands of probationary workers. So Trump administration is reinstating 24,500 fired workers after a court order. So getting paid not to work, federal reinstated, but it looks like they might have some limitations on their reinstatement. So I'll be finding out more about that and hopefully reporting that to you later as well. So the IRS put fired probationary employees on paid leave. Many doubt they're here to stay. So we'll see how this all plays out as well. Residents pick up the pieces after a devastating storms scoured the U.S. South and Midwest. So another mighty multi-threat storm is tracking across the country, and there was the far-flung outbreak yesterday of extreme weather that killed at least 39 U.S. tornadoes, wildfires, and dust storms left 40 dead and staggering damage. In the New York City mayor race, the mayoral candidates that have qualified for campaign matching funds are out there and everything. Money is pouring in for Cuomo and Mamdani in the mayoral race, and a race in the catch up to well-funded rivals. Cuomo raises big in his first mayoral filing. So the mayor puts on a brave face as foes tout their fundraising haul. And the Senate averted that government shutdown, like I said earlier, overcoming Democratic opposition. And Trump signed the GOP 6-month government funding bill passed by Congress. So definitely that's something that we're seeing as well. And it does look like there is some weather that is going out as well. Looks like winter storms are likely to produce blizzards in the plains and the Midwest. So Minnesota blizzard warnings issued for southern Minnesota ahead of the Wednesday storms. So looks like the Messi system will be bringing rain and snow on Wednesday in that part of the world. And Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil described his arrest in a new court filing. So Columbia University student and the U.S. government spar over his detention in Louisiana. Mahmoud Khalil feared the U.S. was trying to deport him during his detention. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio says we're going to keep doing it after the arrest of the Columbia activist. So we'll see how this all plays out as well. And Trump-backed Byron Donald gets first congressional endorsement for Florida. So Florida governor race is going on. Odds on Casey DeSantis are dropping. So Trump Jr. backs Donald for the Florida governor in a MAGA squeeze play. So top conservative groups aligns with Trump as it makes a major endorsement in that high-profile race. And segregated facilities are no longer explicitly banned in federal contracts. That was reported by the NPR News. And the Education Department cuts may leave students with disabilities little to no recourse. Civil rights enforcement in schools is uncertain as Trump slashes education department. And the Utah governor, Senator Spencer Cox, says he supports dismantling the Department of Education and all along those lines. So definitely it looks like the Department of Education cuts could even be having high impacts on some of those folks that are in that area as well. So they said it could have high impact on teachers. So definitely I can see that. And the cop dies when police car split in two by light pole while in pursuit of a suspect. And that was in San Bernardino County. San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy killed after his patrol vehicle was involved in a crash during a chase in Victoriaville and all along those lines. So definitely that's something else going on, as well as Trump administration questions law firms over DEI employment practice. So U.S. Equal Employment Commission demands 20 law firms disclose their DEI employment practices. So the DEI is still going out there as well. And Seattle law firm Perkins Cole drew Democrats' cash and Trump's wrath. So Trump targets law firm Paul West restricting government access, and the DOD deploys a destroyer to join the border security mission. So the Pentagon has deployed a Navy warship that fought Houthis to the new U.S. southern border mission in line with Trump orders. So Navy warship is sent to the southern border to carry out Trump's immigration plans. So it looks like we're going to have a Navy border over there by Mexico carrying out those plans and all along those lines. Well, I've got Rick with me, so I want to see what Rick's got going on in his world and see if anybody else joins us later on and everything. But there's a lot going on. I read earlier today, not in those news briefs, but in another brief, that apparently Trump is adorning the White House with gold. So apparently he's got different gold things that are going on, and I know he's done some other interior design and things as well. So what
right. Well, we know from past Christmas decorations that their taste isn't the best, Trump and Melania's. Though, I like a little bit of sparkly gold judiciously, but I don't really like what they do. Um,
Yeah.
a gold toilet. No, I'd like to steal a gold toilet. A solid gold toilet, it probably these days would be worth, I don't know, $250,000.
I would think so. But the other thing that Trump said he was going to do, and I know you're going to love this because you are a fan of award shows and things like that. But apparently, Trump thinks that he should be the one, since he attended the first board meeting under his new control of the Kennedy Center, that he should be the one to host it. So I guess Trump wants to host the Kennedy Award shows as president. So we've had a couple of other firsts like that he's been doing, but I guess this would be the first time a sitting president hosted a award show. But he said that he thinks he would be a good host and everything.
I don't know. He's been a public speaker slash blowhard for 40, 50 years. He's well able to make off the cuff remarks. Are they hilarious? No, but I mean, among the things that he's not. There's a lot of stuff he's not good at.
Right.
Speaking publicly that's not one of his weaknesses.
Yeah, he's pretty good at speaking publicly. He likes to pop into McDonald's and other places. And speaking of McDonald's, there's an investigation going on, I guess, among some of the COVID food programs and everything. So SAID describes serving thousands of meals daily from a restaurant out in your neck of the woods, or at least in the western part of the world, called Safari Restaurant. And prosecution questions his ties to fraud. So the Safari restaurant owner said he was entitled to huge profits in the meals program. And the Feeding Our Future restaurant owner says COVID meal sites were investments, not fraud. And if you make good food, people come to you. So apparently they're having a whole investigation.
I don't know. I just woke up. I'm not aware of that story.
Yeah.
But I noticed over on Twitter is today that they're supposed to release some formerly classified about JFK.
Without redactions. So apparently you're going to be able to read everything that was involved there and everything like that without the kind of like crossouts and everything. So that's what Trump said he's going to release is this later on today. So who knows what kind of secrets we may learn and everything.
Also, the astronauts who were stranded aboard the space station for 10 months are off of the space station, and they're slowly, well, I don't know about slowly, they're still kind of orbiting. They were 260 miles above the Earth, and now they have to slowly rotate, decelerate in, and will land at around, in the Pacific, I think, around 6 p.m. Eastern time.
Gotcha. And apparently, and hopefully they'll land safely and everything along those lines. But the Pentagon apparently is doing some continuing DEI purges. There are purges all over the country with different programs and everything. So the Pentagon restored the webpage for the Black Medal of Honors winner, but they defended the DEI purge and everything. But Civil War nurses, the USS Constitution commander, were among the female veterans removed in a Pentagon DEI sweep. So apparently they're getting rid of some of the references and everything like that. I think there was even
yesterday people were pissed because World War II Navajo code talkers were removed from some Department of Defense websites. Wow. So the problem in war, a lot of World War II swung on either having code that couldn't be broken or code. We broke the German submarine code, Enigma. Right. And that was huge in winning the war in the Atlantic. And then in the Pacific, we used Navajo Native Americans because they just spoke to each other in their language, and that's a code that can't be broken because the Japanese had no access to any Navajo speakers, and it's not a code, it's a whole other language. And so they were, indispensable and brave, and they were pulled down because, they're not white American, so, it's.
Yeah, so a lot of that craziness going on. Apparently, the South African ambassador has to leave the U.S. by Friday, according to the Trump administration. So apparently, he had some remarks that they found unacceptable. So definitely, they are expelling the South African envoy Ibrahim Russell, who apparently uh, Trump administration expelled South African envoy Ibrahim Russell, calls him a race baiting politician who hates America. So apparently,
I think he said something completely true, and the Trump administration, they're being idiots. I think he said that. No, I'm not sure because I'm just waking up and I didn't read the article completely, but he said that in the future the U.S. will not be a white majority country,
right,
which is absolutely freaking true. By 2050, there'll still be more white people than any other, racial demographic in America, but they won't be 50% of the population. They'll be under 50%.
right.
And okay, so what's bad about saying that?
Yeah, nothing should be bad about saying that, but apparently the other thing that we've talked about on this network is immigration, and U.S. and Ireland apparently both suffer the impacts of illegal immigration. And we know that yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, and Conor McGregor's anti-immigration rant in the White House was condemned by the Irish Prime Minister. So definitely there's also suggestions that McGregor may seek re-election, won't fly, and everything. So definitely, apparently Conor McGregor was meeting with the U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House, and I guess on St. Patrick's Day it would be fitting to be meeting with somebody from Ireland and everything. But apparently, not just the U.S., but also Ireland, Europe. I mean, not just Europe, but England and other parts of Europe are suffering from immigration woes as well. And before you got here, I don't know if you heard what I said, but apparently we're sending a U.S. Navy ship down off the coast of Mexico to help with the immigration situation and everything. I think it's one of the Navy ships that fought the Houthis and everything, but they're going to be down there.
You've called it immigration woes, but in a lot of cases, it's bullshit. That like the U.S. is fine in absorbing some immigrants. That we say it over and over on Pod TV that the U.S. is not making enough babies popping out of American women to sustain the current population. That each woman needs to average 2 babies. Every American every woman, because women are the only ones who make babies, so every woman has to replace herself and her partner eventually. And so we're not at 2. We are at 1.6. So we're only making 80% of the babies needed to keep the population steady. So it's fine to have some immigration.
Yeah, I agree. Apparently, there's a museum conference that's going on. I'm trying to see where it's going on at, but it's the VAM conference. It started on the 15th and it runs till today, the 18th, and everything like that. But apparently, they put out a ALA statement on White House assault on the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So I guess that some of those Washington libraries and Washington museums are concerned that they may get the axe as well under the Trump administration. And I know it's been a minute. Matter of fact, I think the last time I went was one of Obama's inaugurations and everything. But when I've gone up there, definitely visiting the museums is always a great thing to do. And all along,
my kid is a museum curator, and they're on the outside of the library where I went to college is this famous quote: "Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it."
Yes,
and freaking. And you can see it, what happens when you don't keep track of history, just like you and I are about the same age. Mm-hmm. Do you ever try to look up classmates online?
I have done that, and then I've also stumbled across some in real life. But yes, I've tried to look up some online.
But about half of them, of people our age, have like no internet footprint.
Right, that's true.
Because they just never got into it.
Right.
And it's disheartening to see people like we're used to seeing, younger people, their entire lives are laid out across the internet. They've got a huge footprint. But like half the people I went to high school with are just gone. I'm sure they exist somewhere if they're still alive, but you can't find them, you can't see them. And
And some of the
I,
websites that are supposed to be helping you find them are not the most efficient. I just put it that way because I've tried to find people using Classmates and some of the other ones like that, and they're not always the more bells and whistles efficient kind of website.
they'll tease you. They'll say, "Well, we found somebody, but you're going to have to pay us to
Right,
give any details."
exactly. And then once you get the details, it may not even be the right person or whatever. But yeah, they'll tease you or they'll tell you that they it's kind of like ancestry. They'll tell you that they found somebody that they think might be a person that is in your past sphere and all along those lines. Coming back to immigration, it looks like a Canadian who was who was in an American Pie video says ICE held her for 12 days. So a Canadian actor was detained at a U.S. border. She says
So she wasn't in the American Pie movies. She was in they turned it into a TV series in 2009 because people are saying, wow, she looks great for having been in American Pie. Because
right,
I think that was around the year 2000, maybe a little earlier than that.
right.
So people but she was in a later
A later
version.
version, and her name was Jasmine Mooney, and she was detained by ICE for days after trying to enter the U.S. from Mexico. Her mom says so. Definitely looks like she's returned back to where she was from and everything like that. But yes, she was a BC woman and returns home after being detained by those U.S. immigration officials. But yeah, and she does look much younger than the original American Pie people, and all along those
So
lines.
I just want to talk about like people I went to high school with.
Yeah,
These girls that I so wanted to make out with or bang, and nobody let me in high school because I was a mess. But these super hot girls I went to school with, 11th graders, 12th graders when I was in high school, they're all like not all of them, but they're plump, sweet little old church ladies now, which is weird because I don't, I don't know. Time is a mofo.
Yeah, time's a mofo. Sasha's here, and I think I saw Jacoby pop in as well. And this is for both of you. I mentioned it earlier in the day and everything along those lines or earlier in this broadcast. But what is our thoughts about a iconic symbol being asked to be returned? Because apparently the French are not happy with us. And I know that one of our past hosts, and he still does some stuff with us on occasion, Chris Greco, is not a big fan of the French. I don't know how either you or Sasha feel about the French, but he wasn't a big fan of the French. But apparently they're like, y'all people are not living up to the standards of what the Statue of Liberty was.
So, okay,
y'all send it back to us.
So one French legislator is trying to get a bill passed that they want the Statue of Liberty back. I don't know how many years ago they gave it to us. Maybe, I don't know, 140, 150 years ago. And yeah, he says the current, government is not acting according to the principles of this, give us, you're tired, you're poor, you're tempest tossed. We're saying, no, get the heck out of here. You tired, you poor. Anyway, Caroline Leavitt, the White House spokesperson, said, well, France should shut up because if it weren't for us, they'd be speaking German, which is just a snotty comment. And freaking World War II ended 80 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's plenty of time for the U.S. to get kind of, or any country to turn a little bit dickish. And certainly, we are doing some stuff that, if you think being mean to the disadvantaged is dickish, we've turned dickish.
Yeah. I'd love to hear Jacoby and Sasha's thoughts on that. But to answer your question, because I looked it up, in a ceremony held in Paris on July 4th, which is, of course, Independence Day, 1884, the completed Statue of Liberty was formally presented to the U.S. ambassador as a commemoration of the friendship between France and the United States. So how long it took to get from here to there, and when it looks like the statue was dedicated on October 28th, 1886. So it probably took them about 2 years to actually install it in its present location.
It came over by ship, of course, in pieces. And the U.S. had to raise a bunch of money to build the base, the brick base. And then, they had to, Have you been up in it?
Ages ago, but yes.
Me too, when I was, much younger.
Ages ago. So, Sasha, you're oftentimes talking about international news and things along those lines. So what is your thoughts around France wanting the Statue of Liberty back so many decades later?
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, if they want it and US wants to get rid of it, it will be consumed. So they will discuss who will be paying for transportation, dismantling the statue, and what to do once it will arrive to France. And I don't know. To me, it's a fantasy land, really. What we are discussing is a pure fantasy.
Well, speaking of pure fantasy, and this is not fantasy, and it's up the alley of what you and your cohorts will be talking about in about 30 minutes and everything. But since this is the World News Show, what is your take on these talks between Putin and Trump, and whether they will lay to this ceasefire that he is still claiming that he's going to be able to provide in the very near future? So he's still talking about this notion of a ceasefire in Ukraine. So what is your take on this, and will it take place in the next few days, or just going to be weeks out?
There will be no ceasefire. There will be a war lasting at least 2 more years. The only way to finish this war is to distract Putin's armies and take all the territories back. And Europeans are almost ready to do that. Trump is playing completely different game. He doesn't care about peace between Ukraine and Russia one way or another. No, he is looking for his gains as some kind of a deal similar to what he did with Ukraine, or trying to do with Ukraine, rare earth metals, minerals, whatever they are. There are none or almost none. However, keeps him busy. With Russia, he's looking for some deals to do use the pipelines to bring gas to Europe and so on. He's engaging in, I would call it a new word, a Geschäft diplomacy. That's what Trump is doing. Geschäft diplomacy. So it looks like diplomacy, but it's not. It's something else, and he's betraying American people. He's betraying Ukrainians. Putin is a different story. He has a great affection for Putin. He loves him. He's saying that this is the greatest, this little midget, and he treat him as he's the greatest thing in the world, and so on. Okay, listen, what do you want from a guy who is a con man, a criminal, convicted criminal for that? What do you really want from him? He's doing exactly what it. But I think American people, when they choose him as a leader of Republican Party, so to go for election, and second of all, they choose him. Forget about Biden, Harris, how helpless they were and what terrible policies they had. But they were like normal people, similar to your neighbors. American at large, they're not perfect people. So if they were ruled by imperfect people like either Biden or Harris, okay, so they will go on for another 4 years. But when they choose a criminal, a con man, knowing that he is a criminal and con man, it's not a secret. They knew what they were choosing. There has to be a payback time. There has to be payback time, and it's coming.
Well, speaking of payback time, apparently Canada's Carney wants the 51st state talk, and I know that that's where you live at now, Sasha, to stop before talks with the U.S. on the economy and security tasks. So apparently he's trying to put limitations on what Trump is saying, and saying, now you just need to stop this madness about us being the 51st state, or our various provinces becoming the 51st state, and then we can sit down and have a talk and everything. But they're also saying, because I did see that Carney, this was reported in Bloomberg, it says that Canada is limited in matching further U.S. tariffs. And I know you've talked about some of the matching things that they have done, but I guess he's saying that they might not be able to match as much as Trump can apparently do. But what is your take on that? Because that's something that apparently Mr. Carney said yesterday.
Well, let's talk first of all, who are these people who participate in talks? On one side, you have a conman, a convicted criminal, and on another side, you have a distinguished man who was for 7 years. He was ruling the Bank of England. They invited him from Canada for this particular purpose, and otherwise, he was very well known figures in financial circles in Canada. So you can't even compare the level of what you have on one side and what you have on the other side. It's just incomparable. And my personal opinion is Carney doesn't need these stocks at all. All he needs is to wait until April 2nd or April 1st, by the way, because European sanctions and tariffs against US will start on April 1st. They don't even want to wait one more day to give Trump a chance at the end of the day to cancel his tariffs. No, they don't want to even do that. They will barge on with their tariffs on April 1st, one day earlier that US is planning to impose their tariffs. So all Canada has to do, he had very successful trip to France and England. One of the things what he said was that Canada is the most European nation among the non-European nations. I like that sentence. So I don't know what they want to discuss because, by the way, U.S. Canceled the last tariffs that he imposed on Canada. But Canada did not cancel its sanctions against US. They're still in place. And all he needs is to wait. I mean, April 1st, we're talking about, 2 weeks from now?
Yeah.
Time is running fast.
Well, I agree. You know, one of the things that caught my attention yesterday, which I thought was hilarious, and you might get a kick out of this, is Elon got a taste of his own medicine. And his boss, believe it or not, he does have a boss, or bosses, kind of told him he needs to get his butt back into his job in office and do his work because his company is failing because he's doing everyone else's job and not his. So for the same thing that he fired everyone else, he said he fired them for, he has now been given a warning, publicly a warning, by his boss, Christopher Tsai. Christopher Tsai is his boss. So yeah, and come on, what? Yeah, taste of his own medicine. Go ahead.
Just watch the Tesla stock and what it's doing lately.
Right.
It's a life. It's bleeding. It's even today. It's already down 5%. Furthermore, the Chinese BYD company, they invented a new process where the electric car can be charged in 5 minutes. And this is a major blow for Tesla because Tesla does not have that technology. So therefore, Tesla, it's still trading with around 200, some 220.
I thought it was down to 128 the other day.
No. It's trading today 200 something, 220 approximately there. But it's going down to 168 or lower. And
I just saw someone post a thing and I just saw what they posted. It could have been a fake news. There's so much fake news out there.
There's lots of fake news out there. Hey, Kim, just really quickly, because we were joking about it earlier, it seems like there is a mass need for engineers because apparently France wants us back to the Statue of Liberty. And of course, we know that Elon's planes keep crashing. And if I remember correctly, that's part of your background and everything. So maybe there are some opportunities for you to make some money off of your engineering background because they might need some help with those spaceships that keep blowing up. And we've got to figure out how to dismantle this.
I wouldn't work for Elon because he makes you cut corners. And one of the reasons why he wanted Trump to become president was he was under investigation for doing such, causing, dangers, not just because, when a spaceship blows up, even if it doesn't have anybody in it, the debris can kill people on the ground. People just don't think, oh, well, no one was in it. Well, there are people on the ground that it could hit. And I have seen debris come out of the air before. I mean, it was scary. And so, but no, I don't want to work for anyone who's going to make you cut corners. And Remember the submarine that went down with all those people in it and it blew up? Well, they didn't follow regulations, right? They just did their own thing. Well, that's what Elon wants to do, and that's why he pushed Trump to become president so that he could get rid of the investigations against him, because there were a lot of investigations, and they actually put Elon in head of the department that he was being investigated at, fired all of these people, I guess, so that they can't afford to do anything against him. But no, I don't want to work for someone who is nothing but about themselves and killing people. I don't want to do that. I'm sorry, but that's just not my MO for a job. And I don't need a job that bad. They do. But you know what? Elon's going to need a job if he doesn't get his butt back in his seat real soon. I wonder, did the guy send him an email and tell him, email me 5 things that you have done for us today?
That could be what he did and everything along those lines. Hey, just tell me just really quickly.
I'm going to take Christopher out to dinner for that one.
That would be a good one. He should definitely go out to dinner and everything like that. How concerned, and this is for Joe, Toby, and Rick, and anybody else that wants to answer it, should we be concerned about these incidences of countries and to the south of our border that are being influenced by drug trade and everything? Because I did see that Peru has kind of declared an emergency and deployed their army as violent surged in their capital of Lima and everything, or Lima, I guess it's how it's pronounced, and everything like that. And then we also saw something similar, I believe, in El Salvador. So it does seem like that despite what's going on, that the drugs are impacting these Latin American countries, because apparently murders hit records in Peru, and I actually know a couple of Peruvians as the capital entered a state of emergency. So they're just to our south. How concerned should we be about there? What's going on in those?
I mean,
yeah, we should be concerned, but not to the point where we're blaming immigrants bringing drugs. And the problem is that's used to demonize immigrants, which is ridiculous because, for example, I was watching a show the other day, and the Republican, and this is the same talking point that's always used, fentanyl is coming into the country and it has killed so many people. That is true. However, what is it? Upwards of 75% of that fentanyl coming in is brought in by American citizens. So blaming immigrants for those deaths and is wrong in the first place, because it's not the immigrants who are bringing the stuff in. It's actually U.S. born citizens that are doing this.
Well, and to add to that, Jatovi, what I learned with Irene was there are certain timeshares and hotels that have been under investigation for the drug trafficking into this country, and drug trafficking, I guess, into other countries. But the use of hotels and timeshares is probably one of the biggest means of drug trafficking, and also human trafficking, sex trafficking, and pedophiles, which is the 2 men, the Tate brothers, that Trump spent your tax dollars lobbying to bring them back to the United States. And then he goes, I don't even know who they are. No, he did. And he brought them back. But it's those kind of people. So then I started piecing this together. Trump owns, hotels, and, maybe he uses them to do the dirty deeds for him. And why haven't they finished opening up the Epstein files?
I don't have any idea about that. That's a good question.
We do know why he hadn't opened up the Epstein files.
I know, right? And I'm betting that his hotels are drug trafficking, because his hotels, a lot of people don't know, are partnered with timeshares. And they were all under investigation, and all of those investigators have been fired now, but for drug trafficking. And I think that they were also used for sex and human trafficking.
Hey, Kim, could you just speak to that? Because just really quickly, could you speak to that? Because I do know that's a major issue. The cultural center that I work at, there's actually a young lady that came by. She's hoping to do a conference on that. But seems like that is a major issue that is around the world. Apparently, even here in North Carolina, I think it's in Johnson County, there is a big uptick in the sex trafficking. So those that are watching us on Pod TV, can you just maybe share a little bit of what you've learned about how much of a problem this is from some of your police sources and some of your people that are in that field as well?
Well, they busted a lot of people at the Comic Con the last event, but it's a big problem, and it gets bigger and bigger. And you can go into states like Texas, where I know one of the constables for tracking down human traffickers. One of the things they told me that and shared with me that just shocked me was the number one type of human that is kidnapped and trafficked, and it's not for sex. It is young African American boys from the ages of 13 to 18, and they do this for their organs and skin. So, and that is the number one type of person that is human trafficked, and nobody ever mentions this. And it's disturbing to me because we're so focused on the sex aspect of it that we don't. But I saw Rick's hand up.
Oh, no, I'm just looking stuff up so I can not just be completely ignorant.
A lot of people aren't aware of that. That's data that isn't like commonly shared. But working with the head constable in Houston, Texas on this, and the Sisters of the NFL, who also campaigned to raise money to help stop it. I mean, that's sad we have to raise money to help stop it. But what we did discover is a lot of government officials who are tied into the sex trafficking trades as well as the drug trafficking trades. And I mean, look at the Border Patrol agent who was busted over a year ago for trafficking humans, taking money for bringing them over, and also trafficking drugs. And they found, almost $1 million in his apartment. God knows how much more he made. But even, our Border Patrols were guilty of doing this. Yes, Rick.
So I don't know where to find decent estimates and statistics that aren't politically biased. Because the religious right exaggerates it like crazy. I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that there are 200,000 underage sex slaves in the United States, but which is a number that comes from the right. But I don't know what.
So did you just say just only 200,000?
Yeah, what is it? Do you hear estimates that there are?
So, I mean, if you look at the statistics just for domestic violence alone, there are 12 million women, females that are victims, and 24 million children who are victims. Those are solid statistics.
Okay, so
we can ask Nick because he did the research with me years ago.
I'm fine with I'm not fine that it happens, but those statistics sound reasonable. So if you do the math.
Right. A lot of those children are sex slaves. A lot of those women are sex slaves. So I think that number is drastically low.
But it's ditto for organ trafficking. I just did a quick search for organ trafficking in the United States, and it's definitely a thing, especially in countries like, let's see where it says, India, Kosovo, China, even Israel apparently, but I can't find estimates for the U.S. So I don't believe that people are waking up in bathtubs with their kidneys missing.
No, I mean, it's not
all over the United. What's that?
Yeah, well,
it's
sometimes
not like that. They a lot of times, like for the young boys that they're doing, the actual organ that they're kidnapping them for isn't the inside organs; it's their skin, and they keep them alive to use the skin. So no, but yeah, I think people are waking up and missing organs. I don't think it's as mass in the United States. But I do believe that there are many who are kidnapped from the U.S. and we're not told about it. I know there are. So look at the young woman. I mean, I was watching a man the other day who sits outside his daughter's house every day, waiting to help find, them to find her. She's been missing for quite some time. And he said, well, she could be living outside too. So I'm going to live outside until she's found. Why hasn't the police done anything to find her? She was a U.S. postal worker and went missing after work. I mean, that should have been an easy trace. So, I mean, I don't think they really do enough, especially with women, to help trace them when they go missing. And like the Native American girl that was found, chopped to pieces just recently. I mean, Emily Pike, right? Say her name, as they made us do with the other woman. What have they done for her? She's Native American, and they didn't even go looking for her when she went missing. So, I think that there's a huge prejudice in this country, and it's driven stronger by the uh, religious, righteous people.
Yeah, so it's hard to know. Like here's what Google AI says. In the US, while hundreds of thousands of children are reported missing annually, only a small fraction involve stranger abductions, with estimates ranging from 100 to 350 such stranger abductions per year. And here's a more detailed breakdown. It says approximately 800,000 children are reported missing in the US every year, with the vast majority of these cases involving runaways or situation where the child's whereabouts are unknown but not necessarily abducted. So there's a huge difference between, 800,000 missing kids and 350 stranger abductions.
Right. And many of the children that are runaways, they're actually running away from unwanted homes, dangerous home environments. They become the unfortunate cesspool for the human traffickers and sex offenders and rapists, because they prey on them. They prey on the women and children who don't have money or food in their homes or want more, right? So the more poverty you push upon people, the more the children are going to become easily accessible
So
to those trades.
here's Wikipedia on child abduction in the U.S. that the U.S. Department of Justice reported, I guess the last year we have statistics for,
Right.
reported 200,000 cases of parental kidnapping,
Yeah.
where parents are divorcing, separated, and one parent grabs a kid and tries to go missing either somewhere else in the U.S. or they move overseas.
Yeah, there's some of that going on.
Also, I don't know about the certain reporting of the databases, because like in domestic violence, the law enforcement was not required to always report certain data, because if it didn't reach a certain threshold, like 10 per month or something like that, they didn't have to report it. So if they only, that reporting might be the same in that area. And because it made it very hard for me to even get the data that we were able to get. Nick was very, instrumental in confirming my data. But yeah, law enforcement, if they only have one or two, they don't have to report it. But that adds up. Across the country, that adds up. So.
For a civilization where our phones track us everywhere all the time, listen to our conversations, we have crappy systems for crime reporting. There's no non-voluntary national reporting system for gun violence across the U.S. To get any kind of crime numbers, we depend on the good citizenship of various police departments across the U.S. in reporting to the database. But you don't have to if you don't want to.
Right. And it wasn't until certain murders occurred that they realized that there's a problem, because those murders would not have occurred if they had connecting databases. And so they've worked on doing that. But hear me out on this, Rick. I think it's just purely the people themselves, the citizens themselves don't care enough. Because years ago, when my patent was going out for, tracking devices and tracking alerting, and humans could wear them, and we tested them, and a company kind of tailed behind me, and they pushed a product with Verizon, I think it was, to for children to wear a small tracking device, right? And that way, if something happened to them, you might know at least their last known part if it was taken off of them or whatever. But a teeny tiny tracking device that you could put on your child and they could wear all day long. Verizon made a deal. The product cost $100. I think they gave the parents a discount if they would just start buying them. And it didn't cost, it cost millions and billions to develop this technology, trust me. But they reduced the price, and I think it was like $5 or $10 a month to track your child. Now, I'm sitting there going, hell yeah, that's a great deal. Parents spend more than that on video games for their kids. Do you know they didn't sell one?
No. I
Not one.
I know that.
So the problem isn't just law enforcement not using the technology. Parents don't care. They don't care.
Well, no, like my wife always knew where our kid was via, either having the kid at home. I walked to school by myself starting in kindergarten. It was a totally different time. Our kid never walked to school alone. It was 4 blocks, one single time in her whole school career. But 50 years ago, the debate was if we could put trackers on people. The technology wasn't really there yet, but the right didn't like it because it was the mark of the beast in the Book of Revelation. Right. But that was, I don't hear any of that talk now. Nobody's saying Book of Revelation, and the left didn't like it because it felt dystopian. But really,
but your phone is a tracker. We all have cell phones in your phone. So that should have been the devil right there. But nobody wants. People just want what they want and they don't want the truth. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I have a different viewpoint on in terms of cost around children. Take where Mark and I live right now in Durham. More than 50% of the kids, well, actually closer towards 70% of the kids, school age kids going to school, are before we started doing free lunches, were on free and reduced lunch. Many of those same kids can't have a meal at home, so they struggle with that. So asking them to track their kids with an extra $10 a month, while some can afford it, the vast majority can't. So
but really, I see so much misspending. I'm not saying they do. I know a lot of people struggle, but Verizon would have made a deal with these people. All you had to do was ask them. Verizon was trying to push it, and they really would have.
Verizon can push it all they want, but if I can't feed my child, I'm not getting that.
Right.
So regardless of Verizon cutting a deal or whatever, that's not going to be an option for many people. Had it been a free thing to give to everybody as a way to make sure, then most likely you would have had people pick up on it. But as an extra additional charge, when I can't feed my child, it's not gonna work.
I agree with you in many ways. And there are a lot, but I also know a lot of people who could have. They spent $5 to $10 a month on junk, or I would see women complaining about, I don't have enough money for my kid to do this, but they had their nails done. So there's a cap. But I also know a lot of people who work very hard, who barely didn't have money for food because there were so much taxes taken out of their minimum wage income. So yeah, I get it.
There are a bunch of other ways to utilize that money in a much more positive area in terms of giving. Verizon could have built a community center in the area where those individuals are. That building some type of community.
They do that, Jacoby. They do that. They spend a lot of money in things like that. It's just people misuse the funds, because I've worked with some of their community programs.
How much were they going to spend on the bracelets that they complained they couldn't sell and make any money off of, in comparison to a community center in a small community that could have
They
affected.
didn't spend any money on that. They were just helping somebody sell their product. So they didn't invest any money in it. They just
Verizon is a
offered
business, they would have made money. And that is,
We
that
go
is
back
just-
to domestic. Let's finish up with domestic.
And I just knew kind of how they were doing things because I was working with them on
Yeah, I
a
get
different
that.
time. So
I have nothing against it, and it's a positive thing to think about, but there are better ways to do it, and also there are other ways that money could have been spent.
right,
I want to
but
finish
people
off.
buy their kids
Hold
a
on,
cell
let me-
phone. They could easily
let's
buy
finish off
No,
with
that doesn't
domestic
work that way.
violence.
the means to
Can we
track them.
finish it? So you said that 12 million women are subject to domestic violence and 24 million kids, and that's borne out by the statistics, which is each year approximately 500,000 U.S. women are physically assaulted or raped by a domestic partner, and 100,000 men. 3 out of 10 women at some point in their lives are stalked, physically assaulted, or raped by a partner, compared to 1 out of every 10 men. And so, yeah, that supports, there are about 125 million, 130 million adult women in the U.S. and 12 million, that's 10% of that. So yeah, it's a
It's
huge.
a logistical, because remember, not every law enforcement has to report on this as well, because they didn't reach a maximum incidence. So that was a problem we had in collecting data, and I don't think that has changed much. So
And who knows how many people fired by Doge were involved in the compilation of
sex
crime
reporting.
statistics. Yeah.
Well,
Sex
there,
abuse. So
Get ready to wrap up.
that's the saddest part
Ready to
about
wrap up
those.
and everything.
I
We
know.
got Ukraine, Russia, China going on right now, so we're going to wrap up right now.
All right. Bye. Thanks.